First patron question is from Kelvin. He says, not a question, but to Stu, I wanted to say as a kid, I remember hearing the vocals of Cannon Fodder for the first time, and I was amazed when I heard the full spoken song on my A1200. I was blown away by it.
Oh, that's lovely. That's nice to hear.
Matt Cooper.
It's nice, isn't it? People like that.
Yeah, it's funny what sticks in people's heads from these games, isn't it?
Yeah.
I liked the goal-scoring superstar song from Sensible Soccer.
Yeah,
so
goal-scoring superstar hero.
Yes. Matt Cooper says, I'd love to know what inspired the idea for Cannon Fodder. Was it other games, movies, or a mixture of other ideas? Or was it indeed a completely uninfluenced new idea for a game mechanic? As I remember the first time I played it on the A500 thinking it was a completely new kind of game mechanic. And as a footnote, I'd like to say I loved the Acorn version. It was my favourite. I assume he means the Acorn Archimedes there. So yeah, do you know what inspired Cannon Fodder?
Now, I don't know whether this is my memory playing tricks on me, but I believe, although I might be mistaken, it was Lemmings with Guns.
That was the pitch, Lemmings with Guns.
I think, although I'm just that's right in the bowels of my memory. Yeah, there's something there. Yeah, I mean, there wasn't really a big design brief for that game. I mean, we literally had a piece of paper that was given to us about what they wanted, what John and Chris wanted. I mean, bearing in mind, I'd started there, and that was one of the first things I was working on. You know, after we'd done these silly cover discs. So yeah, I mean, I think it was a new genre, wasn't it? Really, I mean, we didn't really have any sort of blueprint to go by. But having said that, once we started working on it, there are other games that were being developed which were along the same lines. I mean, Syndicate is a good example. I mean, when that was announced in the press, somebody asked me not that long ago about, you know, when you saw Syndicate, did you feel that was kind of like threatening what you were doing, or was you worried that would take the limelight away from your game? And I said, well, not really, because we without sounding like we're arrogant or we're outclassing everybody, we didn't think that at all. But we thought, well, this is our game. This is what we're doing. You know, if you've got two people in a room and they're drawing a picture of an apple, they're going to be different drawings. That doesn't necessarily mean that one's better than the other. They're just different ways of doing it. Somebody could use a pencil, somebody could use oil, watercolors, and that's the way I look at it. You know, they might look like they could be in the same genre, but they weren't the same game. So I think really there was no blueprint for it. I think we just went with it as we made it up as we went along. I think. So, that's pretty much how it went.
Cool. Andrew Dalton says, has war ever been so much fun?
Oh dear.
I think that's the correct response. That's the answer. Oh dear.
Yeah.
Maybe the press are onto something there.
Only in video games. Only in video games, I'll say.
Our resident Frenchman Bastien says, what's your opinion of the Mega Drive ports of Sensible Games or the DOS ones? Both of these ports probably not being high up in the developers' minds when creating them, are his words.
Yeah. Got a very love-hate relationship with ports, because I'm a great believer that if you're taking something from a machine, say like the Amiga, and you're putting it onto something like, say, the Mega Drive or the SNES, or the Jaguar or the Archimedes or whatever, I think you should be true to the original. And I don't think you should meddle with the art or the mechanics. Now, I've seen a few ports of Cannon Fodder where the graphics have been played around with, and they've kind of muddied the waters of the look of the game a little bit. They've kind of, I didn't like, I mean, there was one that I saw, I don't know whether it was the Mega Drive or the SNES version of Cannon Fodder, and the graphics had all been kind of pseudo enhanced, but they weren't. You know, they took a blur filter to some of the bigger graphics I'd drawn, and the in-game graphics they'd had. They took like the grass and the tops of the trees and changed the tones, the hues of those greens slightly, which I wouldn't have done. I would have blended it and I would have made it look a bit more enhanced. I wouldn't have just blanketly changed the colour. Things like that frustrate me. So when we did Megalomania, we ported that in-house, that's why we kept it as true as we can to the Amiga. So when you look at the Mega Drive version, you look at the Amiga version, although the screens are different sizes, and they're as near as we could get to each other, you know. So yeah, for an example, when I did Jaguar, I did the Jaguar version of Sensible Soccer, and my mate was doing the coding. He got the job to do the conversion, and he asked me if I would do the graphics. I said, yeah, no problem. All I did is I took the original sprites for Sensi Soccer, and where you might have one color for each of the kit, so you might have like, you know, your hoops and your stripes. I had 4, so I could actually add shading onto the players, and the shadows. There was a little bit of shading on the shadows, and little things like that, which, although on first glance isn't that noticeable, but when you start looking at it, you think, oh right, there's a little bit of subtle shading on that, just enough to enhance it but not take away from the original. And I think that's the key to doing a good conversion, certainly back then. And all this nonsense about, well, you know, I'm going to add my own mark to this because I'm doing the graphics conversion, I'm going to put my own stamp on. It's like, well, then that's not the original game, you know. And I do get a little bit precious with my graphics because, you know, a lot of time and energy is spent getting them to look as good as you can. And then somebody comes along and says, well, throw that out the window. I'm going to put my mark on that and change the colours.
I know better.
Like, no, don't do it. Yeah, you know, don't do it. You know, don't do it. You know, so yeah. That was a long answer, wasn't it?
No, that's great. I hope that answers Bastian's question. Vicky asks a question now. She's an artist who has a YouTube channel called Pixel Vixen, and she still uses an Amiga to create her art. She would like to ask, how revolutionary was it using Deluxe Paint on the Amiga for the first time, and do you miss it?
Blowing. I you know, at that time we had like Commodore 64s and Spectrums and you know, machines that didn't have any graphical interface, and any machines that did have a graphical interface were like thousands of pounds, you know, like graphics workstations. So all of a sudden you got the machine appearing, and you had this amazing interface on it, and you could do these amazing graphics. And you think, well, that's mind blowing. So for me at that time, seeing a machine like that on my desk, and I'm using it, was like nothing I'd ever seen before. And it certainly sort of opened many opportunities for people like me, and it's just to create graphics and art. And I don't necessarily miss the Amiga for creating artwork, because I'm used to the stuff we use now. I could probably quite happily sit there and use D-Paint again. I mean, I use a program called ProMotion by Jan Zimmerman, who runs Cosmico, and I've been using that for many years now, and that's on the PC, and I use that for all my pixel art. And Jan's a great guy. He's fantastic. He does some fantastic programming on that. He's always updating it. He's always adding new features. And that's what I use for doing all my graphics these days if I do pixel art. So I don't think I could go back to an Amiga, but I miss what it represented at the time, because I don't think that feeling is never going to be repeated.
Excellent, thank you. Kai asks, and I think I may have missed something from his question here, but I'll just read it as it is. He says, I'd be interested to know how they digitized the photos for the intro sequence. And I think I've missed what game he's talking about. So
any of them.
Probably Cannon Fodder with the picture of you as Elvis and all of that.
Yeah.
So how did you go about digitizing those photos?
What we did is we had, when we shot the music video, for the video that appeared on the CD32 version, there was some photos taken during that day, during the filming, and they lined us all up, and we had those taken. And that was in, I think, it was in Castle Hedingham in. Like there was a church and they had like all the gravestones, and there was a field behind, and that location was used for all the photos in the game. And we took those photos. We had black and white prints, and we went over to Graph Gold in Witham, who wasn't far from our offices in Saffron Walden. And I drove over there, and they used their scanner, their flatbed scanner, and they gave them to me on a PC disc. I think they were 16. I can't remember if they were 256 grayscale or 16 color grayscale. But I got those images, and then I took them back, put them in my Amiga, scaled them down, and they went into the game, which became the intro.
There we go. Yeah. We've got Graft Gold to thank.
Yes, we have. And they are credited. If you look at the credits for Cannon Fodder, they actually does say scanning by Graft Gold, or words to that effect. They are in credits.
Garrow asks, Can you think of any interesting techniques you came across to push the hardware? I always find it interesting to hear clever ways that developers pushed harder on the hardware or the music. Apparently, there was a music video. There's a lot of questions in there.
That's a packed question, isn't it?
So start with the music video. There was a music video, wasn't there? There was the Cannon Fodder music video on the CD32.
We did, yeah. We did the Cannon Fodder music video. We did one for Sensible World of Soccer for goal scoring superstar hero, and we also did one which has never been released for Sensible Golf, which was called "Do You Want to Play Golf?" which John Hare has got, and I have got it.
Can you give us a flavour? How does the tune go?
Hang on, I'll tell you what I can do. I can show you on my phone.
Oh, brilliant.
And I can video.
Do you want to play golf?
That sounds really sultry.
I should have been a bit more prepared. Hang on 1 second. I will get that up.
Shall I ask you another question while you're looking?
Ask me another question. I'll answer if I can.
Foofly asks, was it hard finding an art style to fit the tone of Cannon Fodder?
I think it was really down to the fact that we had to fit everything in such small pixels, such small space, because when you're doing graphics which are 11 pixels high for the sprites or something like that, you're really quite restricted. So the art style, I've been told, is something that people say I've got an art style. I don't see it myself, but I just draw the graphics as I see fit. I am a big fan of arcade games, so I've always tried to bring that look into the work I do, and I'm always a big fan of anti-aliasing everything. One of the things I have these days is when you see pixel art these days, nobody anti-aliases anything. You see it and it's like, pixel, 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 pixel. There's no mid-pixel when you're going between the shades, which is, I'd be like horrified if I did that. I know that's part of the look and the style. But I would always make sure everything was as smooth as I could possibly make it. A lot of the demos you see on the Amiga would always be anti-alias, and they'd always be really sleek and polished. And I would always try and do that. So the art style for the game, probably I think was in that as the base. That's where I took it from, and then went with it for the scale. And you have restrictions on what size your graphics have got to be for this, for the background graphics and the sprites. And you just go with that really and fit what you can in. So I'm still trying to find this video. I'll have to come back to it, I think.
That's it. Well, that's all the questions now. So
okay.
We're just down to the world premiere of Do You Want to Play Golf?
I'm try and find it.
Played through Stoo's Nokia 6100 phone.
played on a Java mobile phone. Here we go. Right. I don't know if you can see it. Hang on. I'll turn the volume up.
These noises.
It sounds like someone blowing off. Hang on. Is that showing?
We can.
Is it getting glare?
It's all right. That's it. Hold it there. Perfect.
Play golf.
I like it.
Oh, I'm the clown in this one.
This would work as a music video today.
Eurovision. This is a dead cert Eurovision winner.
So that was that. So
brilliant.
So that's the Sensible Golf video, which has never been seen. So that's an exclusive.
There you go.
We're getting a lot of exclusives. We really are.
I would like to upload it, but I can't because it's not mine. And I think, well, John's got it, because we actually went down to Anthony and Nicola Caulfield's house, who live not far from me. You did the Bedrooms to Billions video, and they converted it onto digital for us. So, but I'd already had a digital copy myself, but they did a much better job than me. So, so yes.
You'll have to save it. Maybe one day at one of these expos, you can do like a Sensible panel, and you can do the world premiere of Do You Want to Play Golf? Yeah.
It'd be quite funny. We could reenact it.
Yeah.
But there's a story about that as well, because we actually shot that in, I think it was St James's Park, I think it might have been St James's Park in London. And the guy who directed it was the guy from Magnus, Chas Smash.
Okay.
He directed the video. So, and the gear that I wear in it was actually worn in a Magnus video.
Oh, there you go. Suggs may have had it on. Yeah.
A very surreal experience, because I had him in my car, And I just bought this. I'd actually had a new car before we did that video, and it had that new car smell that you get, which is lovely. And he smoked, and he said, "Do you mind if I smoke?" And I said, "Yes, I do." "No, you can't." And he's like, "What?" And I said, "Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I've only had this car a couple of weeks, and even if you've got the window open," I said, "I'm really sorry." I said, "But I want to cherish the smell." So it's like,
fully understandable. Yeah.
Yes. Anyway, so that was that. Yes.
Brilliant. Good. I hope that answers everyone's questions. Thank you, Stu, for answering those.